After you've identified the properties, the next step in Rich Dad's 6-step process is how do you analyze the property, and then how do you negotiate an agreement with the seller. And many times in many books or courses I've gone to, people make that so complex it actually turns people off, you know? And what we're going to go into is how to make this process simple, because it's very simple, isn't it?
Right, and it's really easy. When you analyze the property, the magic is revealed.
Yeah, once you find the magic of how you look through the numbers and the negotiations and all that, that's where you find some of the best investments in the world. In this program, you will learn to use a simple approach that you can use to analyze any property in minutes. Well, that was a long day looking at all different types of property, but let's summarize, okay? There's 4 types of incomes we're looking for. One of them is regular cash flow. As an investor, you want cash flow now. You don't want to be feeding it. You want money in your pocket. Number 2 is you would like depreciation, which is called phantom cash flow. Number 3 is you want appreciation. So let's say you buy a place for 100, you want it to go to 150. That's appreciation. And the 4th thing is that the beauty of real estate is sometimes you can take that appreciation out tax-free again, right? So that's what makes all of these deals interesting, because we're trying to figure out which one is the best deal. So Dolph, why don't you take over from here?
Okay, well, there are many factors that come into play when you analyze a property, but ultimately you want to have some measure of how well it's performing. And what we've got here are some indications of how the 4 that we looked at, the 4 that we decided during our tours, were the most likely candidates to be good performers. And the things that you absolutely must take into account, obviously, are the purchase price, because the higher the purchase price for a given rental income, the lower your returns will be. So we've got the purchase price on the first house here. They were asking $139,900. We're going to figure that we can get it at about $135,000. I always say never offer the asking price, because you know you'll get it. You might as well offer something less than the asking price. And if all your offers are being accepted, by the way, you know you're still offering too much. Get a few rejections. You can always offer more.
And the one good thing about this house was, even though the price was a little higher, the rents in that area are also higher. I would say that's a pretty stable area, slowly moving up.
Very slowly moving up. If anything, it's moving sideways with just a bit of appreciation.
So although it's probably the more expensive, higher rents, very solid investment, it's be tough to lose any money in this one.
Yeah.
Right. And what we've done in this one is we've taken Bob, the agent's recommendation as to what the rental levels would be there. We've factored into all of these properties a 5% vacancy rate. That's the expected percentage of the time that there will not be a tenant there. We've taken taxes into account, insurances, and other running and maintenance expenses. And what we end up with on that first property is that it looks as though it would have a cash-on-cash return of 14.4%. What that means is for every dollar that you've put into it as a down payment to buy it, you can expect to get 14.4 cents coming out every year as your return. Now, that needn't be good nor bad. It's just a number. It's just what the return is.
Is cash on cash, when you factor in, is that appreciation or just the cash on?
Just the cash. We're taking into account how much cash have we put into it and how much cash are we pulling out. Now, it goes without saying that a house in a high appreciation area is going to be more valuable to you than one that's depreciating in value, but we're just looking at cash on cash for now. Mm-hmm. When we then compare it with the second property, well, it's not really a comparison. The second one we looked at was that brick one. Remember the red brick one that was broken?
fixer-upper?
Fixer-upper. I call it a blower-upper because that's about all it's good for. We had an idea of what the rental would be on that. We knew that the asking price was $102,000. But I haven't even gone through the exercise here because, quite frankly, personally, I wouldn't want to own that. I wouldn't want to attempt to fix it up.
Well, it'd be too expensive to fix up.
Right, and the returns then would be way down there.
You'd have so much money going out, and you're a very good handyman, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's too much work. I mean, you'd have to start from over, basically. Right. Just too much work there.
And no matter how handy a person is to be able to do something up themselves, it may not be a good use of their time. You might be better off spending that time looking for the next best deal.
Right, so it's a good area, but the house is not that good. I mean, it's beyond, I think it's too bad.
Right, yeah. Right, beyond redemption. So we then consider the third house we've got here, which was very close by to the brick one that we've dismissed. It was that green cottage that was very charming.
Oh, yeah, it looked the same.
Yeah,
almost the same
it was
period,
wooden,
yeah.
but and brick, and it looked very similar. The price in this case was $129,900. Again, we figured that we can offer something just a little bit less, about $4,000 less. We're working out our calculations on the basis of buying it for $125,000. Again, we've got our rental in there based on what the agents have told us and what we know we can get for those number of bedrooms. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, $1,150 in rent, the same 5% vacancy rate, the same factors that we're taking into account in terms of expenses and property taxes and the like. In this case, our cash-on-cash return is 7.7%. So it's almost exactly half. And here's something you now have to take into consideration. Do you want this first house that's in an area that's reasonably flat at 14.4%? Or do you prefer this one here, the green one, that's in an up-and-coming area at only 7.7%?
Right, let's stress this again. The greenhouse was an area that's been coming down for years, and now it's on this rebound up. And all the young professionals are moving on. So you as an investor have got to say, am I willing to bet on the 7.7% cash return, the income, versus a capital gain that might be bigger? I think the first house be steady capital gain, but not as spectacular if things go the way we want them, right?
Right. And in general, that is true. Where you have a high capital growth, you tend to have lower returns, and conversely, where you have high returns, you have lower capital growth. And this is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing for me is that if we go on to the house that we spotted when we looked at the greenhouse, remember across the road we saw the for sale sign? We didn't expect it to be much, but when we went inside we were all pretty surprised.
Right.
All the money's been spent on fixing it up.
It's been spent. And the asking price in this case was $114,000. And at this point I'd say, who in their right mind would buy that red brick house for $102 when you can buy the white one for $114 that's all done up? But even so, let's also assume we can buy it at about $4,000 below the asking price. That brings it in at $110,000. The rental in this case is very similar, $1,150. It's also 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's across the road from the greenhouse, so we'd expect the rentals to be about the same. We still have a 5% vacancy rate, and all the other numbers are the same. We now get a cash-on-cash return of 19.5%.
Right across the street.
Across the street from each other. It's nearly triple.
And a lower down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, it really highlights the importance of doing the analysis.
In this program, we'll have actually worksheets here. We'll show you how it's done and all this. I'm not that good at numbers or math, and yet it's really simple. It's simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Just knowing where the numbers go is pretty common sense. And Dolph just does it so automatically in his head that he kind of intimidates people. But trust me, it's a very simple process.
So in this case, the return is nearly 20%. That would seem to me to be a pretty spectacular return in a day and age where currently, if you put that deposit in the bank on deposit, you could expect to get maybe 2, if you're lucky, 3% interest on it, and that would be taxable. Now, of course, real estate is taxable, but only after you've taken account of all kinds of deductions that you can't get in any other investment. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get very close to your 19.5% return as an after-tax return. And so to me, the interesting thing about doing the analysis is it quickly highlights which one is great and which one is still pretty good and which one is mediocre. Because let's face it, if you're used to putting your money in the bank at 2% taxable, 7.7% is still pretty good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's spectacular. However, you just have to look around a little bit, as we did, during the day, and you will find something even greater.
Well, the good thing about this 19 or 20%, that's just cash on cash. If you bet that that neighborhood is going to come up faster, your overall gain could be even more spectacular.
It will be. And this cash on cash return is just in year 1. We can reasonably expect that after a year, the rentals will go up incrementally, and the year after that, they'll go up again. Your deposit hasn't gone up. Your mortgage payments, at worst, will stay the same if you're on interest only, and if you're on a P&I mortgage, that's where you pay down some of the principal every year, your payments will go down. So that after a while, you are getting more and more money, and it's indexed for inflation.
And the good thing about investment real estate is like right now, you've borrowed money from the bank, and you've got to pay it back.
Right.
But when you invest in a piece of property, you use your banker's money, and your tenant pays off your mortgage for you. So that's why, when we talk about people saying, let's get out of debt, are you deeply in debt?
I'm horrendously in debt, but I love it.
Yes, I am deeply, deeply in debt.
I don't sleep well at night if I don't have enough debt,
But there's good debt and bad debt. And so this is what we're talking about here. This is good debt because, number one, it's your banker's money. Number two, your tenant's going to pay you for it. And number three, the appreciation that goes up, guess what? Your banker doesn't want any of that. The depreciation, the tax advantages, your banker doesn't want any of that either. They're passing that all on to you. And when you sell the property or you can borrow the money back out again, that money is basically tax-free or tax-deferred. So that's why I think, investment real estate is a smart way for a young couple like you to go. Stay within this price range until you gain more experience and things like that. And this makes a lot of sense.
Right. Okay, so I think we agree we're going to put offers in on all three properties. And what we're looking at with this first one, the one close to where you live, is we're going to offer $135,000. Now, we might get, say, an 80% first mortgage, which in this case would be $105,000. We can ask the sellers to leave in a 20% mortgage for the remaining $20,000.
It's a carryback like an IOU.
It's a carryback. It's seller finance or vendor finance.
So that's a no money down deal on that one.
Right. 100% financing, 80% comes from the bank, the remaining 20% comes from the seller.
That'd be
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
That'd be a great deal.
Sure.
Yes.
Now, on the second one, the greenhouse, I think we all agree that it's a very good property. It's possibly worth the asking price. What I suggest we do in that case is offer the asking price. However, we might still structure it in a way so that there's no money required on the part of Ryan and Kim.
Yeah, he could ask his dad for the money or her dad for money and say they'd be partners in the deal.
Right, or friends for that matter. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And because this house had a beautiful backyard, was large, and they could put up a guest house, greatly improve the value.
And the house that's already there has a lot of charm, so that gives it extra appeal.
Which they could get a higher loan value then once that was done.
Right.
Good.
And then the third one, the White House, which in some ways is the highest returning property, I think we agreed we'd come in at $110,000. Now, one way of structuring this so that you might need to put in any cash is to ask for a delayed closing. You might ask for a delayed closing of 3 or 4 months. And in the meantime, you would have the right of access to do some of those improvements. For instance, Ryan, you might want to put up that carport already. And then just before you close, you'd send the appraisers back in to get a new appraisal. And instead of coming in at 114, it might come in at 125 or 130 after you've done that work. You get a first mortgage based on that, and that might cover your acquisition cost.
So that means if the value goes up, the banker will lend you more money, which means you put less money down.
Right. And these are just some of the ways. There are, in fact, many, many ways that we cover in the program that you can acquire property without having to put any of your own cash into the deal. The important thing to note is that we're putting in the offers, because until you physically submit an offer, there is no way they're going to accept it. They won't accept nothing.
And if you don't put in an offer, you don't know.
Right.
I mean, the point that we're making here was, remember, we had no money at one time, right?
And that's how I started.
And did people laugh at some of our offers?
Oh, they laughed, they quizzed you, they thought, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Aren't you wasting your time?
Yeah. The thing is, part of the process is just putting in those offers. Have people laugh at you, have them reject you. Even if they say yes, you still have a way out anyway.
Right.
So it costs you nothing.
Well, let's write them up. That won't take long at all, and fire them off, and then we can see what happens.
As Ryan and Kim await their answers, it's time for you to discover the rest of Rich Dad's 6 steps to becoming a successful real estate investor. In the audio and workbook portions of this program, you'll discover how to negotiate a winning deal, where to find financing even if you have little or no money of your own, what to look for during property inspections and other due diligence, how to find the right tenants, how to manage your property for maximum profit, and much more. But now, let's continue your journey on Rich Dad's Roads to Riches. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
When you go into the rest of this program, you'll find a wealth of information on the rest of Rich Dad's 6 basic steps. A reminder, though, all 6 steps are important. If you leave one step out, the process doesn't work. So basically, that's all Dolph and I do. We get up and we go through the 6-step process of looking at properties all day long. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I fully agree, and you've got to remember you've got to have fun during this process too. Well, like you, Robert, I started playing the game Monopoly at a very early age. In fact, we got sick of the original board and made our own out of big folded-out cardboard boxes. But I carried on with real estate, and I bought my first property at the age of 17. And right throughout college, my 8 years there, I kept on buying so that by the time I finished, I didn't really need a job. And I enjoyed it so much, that's all I've done ever since. I just go around the world now looking at real estate deals and trying to pick the eyes out of the deals I look at.
So the first step for you now is go through the rest of this program, then get up, leave your checkbook, wallet, and credit cards at home, and start looking at property.